All right. How is everybody feeling after last week? Good enough to come back? Intrigued enough to come back, I guess. That's positive. What were your favorite parts of last week? What's something that stuck out that you remember learning from last week? Crickets. Oh, yeah. So customizing your toolbar over here with the bookmarks. No, rarely does anybody. So good, I love that. Anybody else?
I thought it was cool that there's some apps that you can sync up.
Yeah, the integration with apps is really kind of cool. And there's so many options, right? I love it. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do with the first 30 seconds is do a crash course, and let's review kind of what we talked about last week. So if there's pieces, just want to kind of jog our memories. So one of the first things we talked about was the subscription level element of QuickBooks Online. It's not a one-size-fits-all, as it shouldn't be, right? All of us do business differently and operate things a lot differently. So the subscription level that best fits you is determined more or less with talking with a pro advisor or kind of fishing around on the website. You have to really determine, am I doing accounts receivable or not, accounts payable or not, and those are the big defining factors as far as which subscription you want to be in. We also talked about all the plugins that come along with that, so QuickBooks Payments, we'll talk a lot about that tonight in reference. QuickBooks Payroll and those kinds of things, while they have QuickBooks in the name, are not QuickBooks Online. They are different and can plug in kind of like the apps. And then we talked about accounting basics. So quick crash course, who remembers the difference between cash versus accrual accounting?
Accrual is when you count the income, date you send the invoice.
Yes.
And you expense the date of the invoice that you've received.
Yes, absolutely. So again, because I'm the mic, I'm going to repeat what you say, but not because I'm being condescending, but because on the video you want to hear it later.
Your version might sound better.
What you said was that it depends on the date. With accrual, it matters the date of the invoice or the intention, right? And on cash basis, it's when money changes hands. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight and kind of make that sink in a little bit better, but I'm glad that stuck. Very good. Okay, we talked about double entry accounting and not to be afraid of debits and credits, right? Because the whole idea is that number one, QuickBooks is doing it for us, and that it's an if-then scenario. So if I'm doing something, it's affecting another account somewhere, increasing to decrease or increase to increase, whatever. We talked about the 5 types of accounts. Who can name the 5 types of accounts? Off the top of your head. Income, I'll give you one. Assets. Expenses. Equity. You're on the front row, so equity and liability. They're all rooting for you in the front row. Yeah. We're going to come back to that again tonight when we're talking about stuff. Those 5 types of accounts boil into 2 different reports. We've got our balance sheet, which has the assets and liabilities and equity, and then our income and expense, which creates our profit and loss or our income statement. Right? Okay. And then that was basically all of the accounting basics. We spent the last half of the last class navigating QuickBooks Online. Who remembers what the rule of 3 is? Sorry. It's after dinner. You know where they are? Boom, boom, and boom is what you were saying, right? So rule of 3, we're in there to navigate or create settings, manage settings. Anyone who uses apps or any sort of tools knows that universal symbol of the gear gets us into administrative settings, right? Second reason we're in QuickBooks is because we want answers. We want to find information. We're finding that in the navigation menu. And the third reason, which we're going to focus a lot on tonight, is we're adding data into QuickBooks Online. And that's the plus new button. So those are the 3 landing points. And we have the rule of 3 because if you know why you're in QuickBooks, you can cancel out the noise. No other muck. There's a lot of things that QuickBooks can do, but you're focused into one particular avenue, and it takes away decision fatigue a little bit, right? I only have to look at that, not this. So that sums up everything we talked about last week. So today what we're going to talk about, we're going to focus on is workflows and forms. And particularly, we're going to focus on the customer workflow, or the money in workflow, and the vendor workflow, or money out workflow. Okay? It's good. I'm trying to think, like, my brain's catching up too. So, okay. Do I want to start with products and services and talk about the scenario? That's what I want to do. I just did this 2 hours ago, so I feel a little silly. Okay, I like presenting this like organic hypothetical that helps us kind of understand QuickBooks and the way that workflows work. If I tell a business partner or a friend, we'll say a friend, if I'm telling a friend, I'm going into business and I'm really excited about it, what do you think their very first question to me is going to be? That's how I presented it. I'm like, hey, I'm going into business for myself. What are you going to ask me? Are you crazy? No. What's that? Go ahead. What are you going to do? Doing what, right? What are you going to sell? Product or service, right? What are you going to do? I'm going to sell garden gnomes. Okay? Next question. Off the top. Why? Are you crazy? Let me reiterate. Are you crazy? Who's going to buy garden gnomes? Right? You like garden gnomes?
I'm blaming you.
Oh, did you see them everywhere?
Today I got a bunch of garden gnomes.
I love it. They're all the rage.
And they're cute, but I'm like, they are cute.
Bizarre, huh?
You put it into the universe.
I did. I'm sorry, not sorry. I see them everywhere now too. Like I didn't care about them. I thought they were the silliest thing. And since doing this class, they're everywhere. They are everywhere. Okay, so I know what I'm selling and I know who I'm selling them to. Now I just got to do it, right? I got to actually collect money, sell the thing, do the thing. And then I want to get paid for doing that thing, right? And then ultimately, it's nice to hang on to that money, but that money belongs in the bank. That organically is the customer workflow, beginning to end process. Okay? And we're going to dive into each step of that and the forms that are associated with that step. So I'm going to take a break and let Amanda do the first lab, hands-on, for products and services. We're going to answer question number 1. What are you going to sell? And what does that mean for QuickBooks Online?
All right. So we are on
28, I think.
yes, page 28. So we are looking at some forms.
Did I lie? Is it not 28?
No, it is. Okay. Lab 2.1. We're going to add some products and services. Okay, so there are 2 places that we can find our products and services. One of them is up here in the gear under lists, because it is a list that we use right there. And the other one is under expenses. Nope, sales, sorry. Sales, I take that back. Products and services up on the right.
So we can get
Or
it
right there.
covering the menu, or we can go
Or up there. Yep. Okay, so products and services, this is what is actually going to go onto your invoices. So these are super important, especially if you're selling something, because you want that on your invoice. And all of the information we put in here is going to be created there as well. So we're going to start by adding a new product or service. So if you scroll to the top, the green new button is going to allow us to do that. So,
I think you can actually do it. Just from one of the updates.
oh, is that on the plus new as well? Oh, you can on the plus new. So there's 3 ways to get to it. I forgot about that one. Okay, so do you guys know the difference between an inventory product and a non-inventory product? What's the difference? What's an inventory product?
Something you stock.
Right, something you stock, you're going to want to keep track of, you're going to want to count it and make sure that you have the right amount and nobody stole it, right? What about a non-inventory product?
Something you gotta order in.
For a specific purpose, right? You're going to buy it and you're going to just immediately install it somewhere, right? You guys do that a lot.
In both cases, these are both physical items. Okay.
Right, so they're both physical items that you're going to buy. One of them you're going to stock, the other one you're just going to use right away. What's a service? Pretty straightforward, right? Something that we're going to do for somebody else, not necessarily involving products. And then we also have this option here, which is really kind of fun to play with, especially in your genre, is that the right word? That you can bundle products and services together into one bundle, and it will sort them out where they need to be. So then you just have one line item that is like an install of a bathroom, right? And it includes all of this information into one. So a lot of our construction workers use that. They bundle them together because they're just doing one big project, but then they're going to have all the other things on the back end. Anyway.
Why would we want to separate, I don't know if it's on, I hope it's on. Why would we want to separate inventory or non-inventory items from service? What implications does it have? Sales tax, 100%, right? In the state of Utah, for the most part, the rule of thumb is, unless you want to go read sales tax law, and good luck with that, is that most labors are tax-free, right? Whereas products and goods are taxable. So we'll show you in just a minute when we get into invoices, there's ways to manually adjust things, but if we set things up right, we don't have to think about it. So if we are literally putting a labor element on our estimates or invoices, we want to use the service item and not non-inventory item, because it's going to not calculate tax by automatically, okay?
Yeah, make sure that you do know if your profession has to charge sales tax. There is one that I know of in particular that is appliance repair. They have to charge sales tax on labor. So it's, I have no clue. I actually questioned it myself, and I went to a tax person. They're like, yeah, it's one of those fluke things, like
something to do with the permanence of the
super
item.
random. Yeah,
'Cause you
it's
can take
really
the shelter
dumb.
with you when you sell a house and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. So make sure that you have a good CPA or someone that can help you through that tax code to so that you know for sure. Okay, so for this exercise, we are going to create a non-inventory item because we're just going to turn around and sell these, right? We're going to install them somewhere. So we're going to call this Garden Gnomes to Sell. Marilyn named them Blue Garden Gnomes last time.
Oh, that's because we talked about category,
That's right.
which we could. Do you want to talk about category?
When we get there.
Okay.
We're not quite there yet. All right, so that's what we're going to call it. That's what we're going to see it as on our invoices. It's going to be a gnome to sell. Here is kind of fun. You can put in a picture of what it looks like so that maybe someone selling it can find that. If there's similar things, they don't maybe know what it looks like. You can add a picture there. Does that create onto the invoice? It does. So if you have a picture there, it will attach it to the invoice as well so that your customer can see this is what they're buying. If you buy things and have a SKU number, you can put it in there. Just helps you to organize things a little bit easier, but it's not necessary. The next one we're going to do is a category. So categories are kind of fun, and we have some here that are set up like they have a design category, and they have a landscaping category, and they have a pest control category, and fountains are under design. So when you see that, and we're gonna show you kind of how to do that. So we're going to create a category tonight that is garden gnomes.
Here, I looked down for 2 seconds. Where did you find?
Oh, you're good. We're doing category right here.
How did you create a new one?
Oh, sorry. So, yep, there's an add new button right there.
Can you drop down? Okay.
Yep. Yep. So, and then she's going to change this. And you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but we're going to change this. Oh, we're going to do red ones tonight. You guys get the red ones. The other class was blue. Okay. And then, so we sell this product or service to our customer. This description is really kind of fun, and it's kind of necessary if you want people to know about the product that you're selling them. So we're just going to put in here, we're going to sell the red garden gnomes with the big nose tonight. And we'll show you kind of where you can see these things as well. Here we can put in a sales price. We're going to sell them for $20. So this is what is going to go onto your invoice. This is what people are going to see that they're going to pay you for this product. Now this is where people get a little confused because this is a product that we're buying from someone else, but in this instance, we are selling it, right? So we want it to go into our income because we are going to receive money for this product. So you guys should have from last week your income account of gnomes. Garden Gnomes income. Yeah, I need to update this. This is a little outdated. So we're going to use sales of product income because ours resets every time. So we have the sales of product income. You're going to have the gnome income, right? So this is what's going to happen when you invoice someone. That money is going to go into this account in your QuickBooks. Okay, and this item is we're going to make it non-taxable, but most items for non-inventory is going to automatically come up as taxable because they're going to assume that you're accepting tax on that. You can change this to be whatever you want taxable. You can change it to not taxable. And there is, I haven't played a whole lot with these to know exactly.
It's helping you to understand kind of like
Like the
tax code.
different
It's like
tax.
a simple survey to figure out. You may say it's non-taxable, but Intuit's going to tell you it is.
Right.
So,
So this helps you just kind of decide if it's taxable or not. And if you don't want to sell it with tax, then just do non-taxable and save it. So now this says non-taxable here. So this is also, and I don't think this part is on here, but I'm going to have you guys do this anyway. So this is something that you're going to buy from someone else and you're going to turn around and sell it. So this little check mark box here, that I purchased this product or service from a vendor, we're going to pop that up. And then this information is going to come from your vendor, so who you bought it from. So we're going to put a description in there that it's the big red nosed gnome. And let's say they sell them to us for $10. So this is what you paid for the product from the vendor. And then the expenses, you guys should have a gnome expense account, garden gnome expense account is going to go here. And that's why we are proponents of expense and income on our things as well, so that we can, in the naming, so that we can do this. So we're going to use the job materials for us, and then you can add a vendor in here. So if there's one vendor that you buy from all the time, then you can put this here, and then it creates a thing that anytime that you use this vendor, then this expense account is going to pop up. Does that make sense? Okay, and we're going to kind of show you how to do that. Okay, did everyone follow and we're good? Good? Okay. So now, really quick, okay, yep, let's show them here. So here we have our red garden gnomes to sell. It's a non-inventory item. Here's our description of what we put. This is what we're selling it for. This is how much we paid for it.
non-taxable, there's no check mark
Yeah,
here.
it's non-taxable. If we were to have put this in an inventory, as an inventory item, it will start counting here how many you have on hand, and it will adjust as you order things and put in those orders. And then your reorder point, you usually, if you do an inventory item, you can say when it gets to 3, I need to reorder. This will show you here that you need to reorder. You can edit these at any time. So if you need to change the cost of what you paid for it, if you need to change your sales price, if you need to change a name, anything like that, you can always go back and edit it. So don't be afraid that it's going to be there forever. You can always change things. Okay? All right, so let's show them what it looks like on an invoice, Marilyn. Oh, yes, and you can make things inactive. You can run a report on that item and see how many times you've actually sold it. That's kind of nice. And then duplicate, you can duplicate this and just change the name because you are maybe doing blue gnomes now. All the same information.
Come back. Blue, or our blue.
They are blue. Okay.
So now you can see under our garden gnomes.
Yep. So now we have 2, and that will tell you that you copied it from something else.
Called copy.
It's called copy.
I can put that. Anyway.
It's all good. All right, so let's look at what this is going to look like on an invoice really quick. We'll kind of show you why we put a description in.
So I type in garden.
So type in garden, and then it's going to pull up your options. So these are all the options that we have that have garden in them. So pick one of them. Well, let's do the red one. That's fine.
It didn't change that.
It didn't change that one.
I'm too tired for this game.
Okay, so when you send an invoice to your customer requesting payment, this is what they're going to see on their end. So the product and service. So this is what we did when we created a, what was it called? Description, no. Category. Sorry. Words are words, yes. So this is our category here, which is garden gnomes. And then this is what we call a subcategory, but the red garden gnomes to sell are under that. And so we can keep stacking things under garden gnomes, and it just has a colon, and then it will tell you what it is, right? So that's what you're going to see. Description is going to show up here. This is what they will see as a description on there. You can change these. You can add to this. You can do whatever you need to. If you want to tell them something specific about that garden gnome, you can add that there. You can change the quantity here. You can change the rate at this point too if you need to. So like if we're selling them for 25, so we've got $100. We can add the tax here if you decide you want to tax it. And then, so that's, and we're gonna run through this too. We're gonna like have you create an invoice. But we just wanted you to see kind of how that lines up right after that. So, make sense? Okay.
Yeah, so the reason, the reason that we go through the process of creating the products and services and being as detail oriented there is so that we save ourselves data entry later on. So all that stuff that we populated one time can happen automatically going forward. Okay.
All right.
Your turn. Sell 4 garden gnomes. Where is there evidence of that in my financial reports? First of all, is it on the profit and loss or is it on the balance sheet? If you're selling garden gnomes, what happens to your financials? It's income, yeah? So it's profit and loss. And where are you going to see it? In the income portion. But what is it going to say? Is it going to say garden gnomes income or is it going to say blue garden gnomes? Or red garden gnomes, you guys are red. We mapped it to an income account, so it's going to be there, right? That's the whole point of that. And the same for when we end up going and buying it, which we'll talk about at the last half of class, is we'll see it in the expense account that we listed. Not as the product or service, it's kind of just a shell that has mapping both ways, okay? All right, so let's talk about step 2. We know somebody who wants to buy garden gnomes, in particular our blue garden gnomes or red garden gnomes. I'm gonna get it mixed up tonight, real bad. Okay, so there's a few different places that we can go add a customer. That's the next step. Logically, where would you go to add a customer? Plus New does have it because people complained. I'm taking full credit for that. I complained enough that you should be able to add it from there that we can. So add customer there, yes. Where else could I go to add a customer? Yep, she's already there. We're in the sales center currently, right? No, we're actually in products and services, but if we go to sales, just overall, all sales, overview, whatever. Nope, or customers, I lied. We're in the customer center. We'll talk more about this in just a second. We can add a new customer from there. Okay, so let's pull up the new customer form that exists. And let's add a customer. This is lab number 2.2, also on page 28. So we know a guy whose name is John Gnome. We're going to put him in here. It's of note to say that you can add any customer or any vendor with just a name. You need none of these other details to save a customer account or to create a customer account. We could even name it just J, the letter J if we wanted to, and it would add. But the more information we have here, the better for us later on, right? Instead of having to go type things in, like when we're creating invoices, we can put the address now, so it auto-populates, all those things. And we're gonna run through everything we can add, just so that you know what exists. But if John, and we'll talk more about this, I remembered, it's so sweet. If John were part of a company, like that we, maybe John is like a sales rep or a contractor for somebody else, we could put a company name, which then makes this drop down matter to us. The customer display name is, in this case, it's how you view your list over here. But it's also going to be what name shows up on the forms you create, whether you're writing a check out to them or creating an invoice, it's going to address it how you do the customer display name. In the lab, it says that his email address is this johnsmith2023@gmail.com. If you want to reach him, his phone number is 435-999-0123. You could obviously treat this like a Rolodex if you wanted to and add fax numbers. Who faxes anymore? Mobile number, websites, all those other things, right? This thing, we didn't talk about this last class, but is a sub-customer. So let's say you have multiple people under a certain project, right? This is going to create a parent-child relationship that we call in QuickBooks. We'll talk more about that in just a second over here. But we can't, in this case, the lab says he's not a sub-customer, but this is where we would do that. His billing address, according to our lab, is in the Oasis of Brigham City, 123 right-hand lane. It remembered. We just did this an hour ago, so I'm glad it did. Okay. Okay. That's its billing address. Very important to us because billing and sometimes shipping addresses are different, but this box is automatically checked. Just consolidate. Sometimes it's one and the same, right? And then we have down here, which is not in your lab, but I want you to add it anyway. We have notes that we can add for customers, and I'll show you where that shows up later. Let's say John is our favorite customer ever. Go ahead and type that in. Okay. If John were a client who contracted with us, he's like, I'm not buying garden gnomes from anybody but you, and I'll sign a paper that says I will never go to Home Depot to buy garden gnomes. I would put that attachment in here. Save it for, proof should he ever go to Home Depot and we want to litigate. I don't know. But there's lots of things. Anytime we're creating a vendor account or a customer account, really any form we have, we can add attachments. And I would recommend that you do. We want to make this kind of a database, everything at our fingertips. Okay. You can also put payment information in. So typically John pays with a credit card or whatever. We're not going to do that. Phony Baloney Company doesn't have credit, so we couldn't even if we wanted to. You could if you signed up for QuickBooks Payments. Additional info, you can create a customer type. So I think in the Phony Baloney Company there's no options, but maybe you have a type where it's like, these are all of my network referral type customers. Or these are people that are coming off of website ads or whatever, and you want to keep track of those types of customers, which later on, spoiler for next week, we can run reports to see how much we're making off of referrals from our network or from our website ads or from radio ads or whatever. We can create types like that. Okay. If you sell, I don't think that applies to you guys a ton. Anybody sell to tax exempt people? You do? Okay. Here's where you're going to put in their exemption details. And in the attachments, you're also going to put in the form that's associated with that. Yeah? Nice place to put it. Okay. What else do we have? Is that it? Did we get to the bottom of the list? We did. We got to the bottom of the list. Okay. So now, let's talk about the view of the customer center. We've added a customer. It's great. We're going to use him later. But there are two, what? Unexpected error. I was like, no, not tonight. There are two ways to view the customer center. Let's go back to, yes. This is view number one. It essentially brings up what we understand to be like a contact list, right? It's going to list all of our customers, names. If there are companies, we'll include that. Phone numbers for contact. If they have an open balance, as in money they owe us, right? And then actions we can have for these customers. If you click anywhere in here that is not on words, it will give you view number two of the customer center. This is my preferential view. Okay? What's going to happen now is all of our customers are going to be in a sub-list over here in the left side of the window. And we can search them just the same as we could before. But now what we have is a view of the transaction list for every customer and history with that client. This is where you're going to spend a lot of your time looking for information. Guarantee it. So let's go look for John Gnome. What I'm seeing over here right now is John Gnome owes me no monies. That's what that says, okay? Here's our transaction list. This all should look familiar. We just did this. We put in his address. We noted that he's our favorite customer ever, right? Probably because he promised he was never going to shop at Home Depot and only shop with us. We can see, again, there's $0 open. He doesn't owe us anything. And in particular, there's nothing overdue. So when we talk about invoices in just a second, and we populate this with some actionable items, right? If we have invoices that are past due, it'll show us the past due amount in conjunction with this. So this will be a portion of this, usually. Or the same number if it's one invoice, right? Any questions about this? The two views of the customer center? Nope. Oh, yes. So first of all, we have the transaction list. This is default to show us. And if you click on John Melton, does he have stuff? He obviously does. John Melton owes us $450. That's what that says. Evidenced over here, same thing. Open $450, overdue $450. Which invoice is it? Can you guys see? Yeah. Yep. Which you can actually, reading this transaction list, it looks like originally that invoice was for $750, and he made some sort of deposit for $300 applied. right? So that leaves the balance of $450. And he's not our favorite customer because it doesn't say so. So back to John Gnome. Oh, nope, doesn't matter. Statements. Statements are going to show statements that you have printed off. And I think that happens a lot, again, in this industry. Sometimes you're invoicing people multiple times a month and then sending a statement at the end of the month saying, hey, these are all what's due. And then they'll usually pay off of the statement and not just individual invoices, right? So this could be your list of just the statement transactions. Recurring transactions, we didn't really talk a ton about last time, but recurring transactions is the memorized form from QuickBooks desktop era. And when we create an invoice, I'll show you how to do that. But here's where you're going to find any recurring transactions related to the customer only, not your full list. You're going to find that in the top right gear, but this is recurring transactions for just John Gnome. Customer details is going to show you what you'd find in the edit button, but in just kind of a calling card fashion. And you have the option, it's a more advanced topic, but there is the option of turning on late fees and finance charges for those customers who are deadbeats and don't pay you on time. Okay? Okay. Good catch, Amanda. Who's ready to make an invoice to sell some garden gnomes? You guys have to be more excited, because otherwise I look really phony baloney up here. Okay. New transaction is where we're going to start, or we could go to the plus new button, right? Either way. If I push the new transaction button, I see only the list under plus new customer. I don't see all the other ones, so I could take away some of the noise there if I wanted to. But that's only if you're already in your customer center. Otherwise, it takes a minute to get there to go push that. Plus new is the fastest way, I think, to get there. So let's create an invoice. This is the old format. Your invoices don't look like this anymore, so let's talk about the new format. Update the layout. I don't know why the company hasn't changed it. Big sigh. Okay. I can tell I'm in the invoice form because obviously it looks like an invoice and it's the only form that looks like this, but also it has the name of the form up in the top left corner, right next to the backwards clocky thingy that's going to show us previous invoice forms, okay? The invoice update, this format, launched officially last Thursday, right? And is permanent, can't go back, can't switch to classic view. So let's talk about how it's really helpful. What it has done is tried to make it more customer-centric. So this is what your customer is seeing. I think a lot of people in the past were using the forms in QuickBooks and sending off things they didn't mean to send off to their customers. Some internal notes kind of slipped through, et cetera, et cetera. So this is kind of giving you the perspective, this is what I want my client to see. So in our lab 2.3, we are going to create an invoice for John Gnome. So we can pull him from here, or in any of the customers, if John Gnome weren't the one we were talking about, or if you scroll up to the top, excuse me, anytime we have a drop down, we have the option to add new. Okay? John exists, so we're going to go back there. Notice all of that hard work that we did auto-populated stuff for us, so that's why we're doing that. Okay? If, for example, I'm noticing as I'm doing this, that's an outdated email for John. I know I just emailed him somewhere else. The coolest thing about the update, and the thing that I'm hanging on to love it, because I don't love it yet, is this Edit Customer button. In the past, you'd have to close out this invoice, go back and fix the customer, and then come back. Now, by pushing the Edit Customer button, it pulls out the drawer here without closing your invoice. So we can go and update this in his email address if we wanted to and say it's just John Smith at Gmail. Not John Smith. Okay? And then we can save it from here. Very cool. That's actually like my favorite part of the update. Okay, let's talk about terms. Someone define what terms are for me. What does that mean? How long they have to pay. 100%, yes. So in this case, John, even though he's our favorite customer ever, his terms are due on receipt, right? Is that what it says? Yes, it does. He's due on receipt, which for the most part, QuickBooks will you'll put in today's date. I think that's actually what the lab says too, is today's date is we're invoicing him. It will make the same date. So May 15th is the due date. Unless, I don't know what the rhyme or reason is. I think it has something to do with date timelines. It might push that to May 16th as the due date. Still due on receipt, the same terms. And we'll come back to that in the customer center. Okay, so here again, we have the products and services. And we can search for, like we did before, just gnomes, because we have our category here. And he's gonna, well, it doesn't say in the lab, but because we did it, the red garden gnomes with a big nose. Okay? Again, it auto-populates everything that we had. But let's say, even though he's our favorite customer ever, prices are just not right. We're gonna increase that price from the $20 to the $25. The lab does say he's buying 4 of them. Okay? If we scroll down now, we've kind of built the bulk of the invoice, but there are messages that you can include. So if you're sending an email with a payment option through QuickBooks Payments, this is how you can communicate that. You're like, please use your credit card or please use ACH or whatever. That communication does go through. It's not hidden. You can see these ones here. Here's our note that he's our favorite customer ever, or maybe it's a negative review that he's a deadbeat and never pays us. That's why we raised his price from $20 to $25, right? We'll get it back somehow. It's hidden. He's not going to see that. That's for internal use only. But this note for customer, which I think in your lab it says, thank you for your order. You could put that there and that's going to show up on the invoice. Okay. The memo on the statement, this is hidden. This is internal. So for the sake, it's not in your lab, but for the sake of, I want you to see what happens when you put something here. Let's say this is the red gnome order. Sounds kind of Star Wars-y. Okay. If there was a formal request or a purchase order or something along those lines that triggered you to create this invoice, you could attach that statement here if you wanted to. Okay, scroll back up just a little bit, Amanda. So we'll look at the math here, right? So we know that our 4 gnomes at 25 are $100. We can offer a discount at this point based on percentage or $sign, that other toggle button. If you push it, moves to a specific dollar. That's going to be after tax, by the way. If you want a pre-tax discount, you have to create a line item up here. Okay? Why would you want a pre-tax discount? Save yourself on some tax, sales tax, right? The liability. Yep. Okay. And then it's going to tell you your totals here. Okay, so let me tell you about the real big difference between the last form and the new form as launched last Thursday. It's this managed drawer that exists. It used to be we could do stuff based on some buttons that were down here. No longer. But it starts with first the customization of your invoice. This is going to tell you what fields are populating over here. Maybe you don't care or do care about ship to invoices. John doesn't live near us. He's not going to come pick them up from our store. We're going to ship him to. So now we have that box that just populated. Toggle it off and it goes away. See, that's how that works. Okay. Most of the time, we're really interested in just the invoice number, date, due date, and terms. And maybe sometimes you don't need terms because due date says it enough. Yeah. Okay. Payment options. Again, this links to your QuickBooks payment account, if that's something that you signed up for. But also in this tray, you can take deposits, which is really helpful, especially for general contracting, right? Sometimes you take some money down. We could talk about progress invoicing, but sometimes they're giving you money the same time you're creating that first invoice. So let's just indicate that maybe under the deposit, where'd it go? Oh, I was like, it's not popping up. So maybe he paid us $10 in advance. Some little bribe money to get it out faster, I don't know. Okay, so now the invoice is going to show a balance due of 90. We'll take it off because it's going to affect our later labs, but that's how you do that, or how you can do that. There's actually a button there for applying the discount after sales tax as well, which I guess you can put it there. Interesting. That's new. Okay, let's go to the design drop. Design allows you, which you were able to do before, create your templates. It used to be under the gear and custom form styles, but now we can change the color. We can add our, well, you can't add your logo from here, but you can manage the color, the font, and like the orientation.
Where did the colors go? The last one.
They were. Preview's not available for these templates. I don't know. Did you just pick a different template? No, only standard. Modern? Oh, there it is, under modern. So if you push pink, because Amanda loves pink, it changes the colors and stuff up here, right? Okay, you can change your font to whatever. play with it, make it your own, personalize it. Okay, scheduling now. This comes to the recurring transactions that exist for customers. So I won't let you do that because, if you do that, it'll save it. That is one of the complaints. You can't fill out all the information here and have it populate into your recurring transaction. You can save this and you have to go redo it for the recurring transaction, but that'll be the last time, ideally, you have to do it. So let me show you what a recurring transaction looks like. It looks exactly like the invoice. Yep. It changed the form from an invoice to a recurring invoice template. Okay, you can schedule it to be, it talks about the intervals down below, but you can make a reminder or something that automatically happens or an unscheduled so that you can go push it. Most people do just the scheduled because what's the point of doing a recurring transaction if it's not going to happen? You can have it automatically send emails for you. I have a customer who bills the exact same amount every month because they're on a contract for 3 to 5 years for someone to collect $99 a month for what they're doing. You would have to make that invoice once and then never think about it again, literally, if you have them automatically sending and collecting and whatever. Okay? You can include unbilled charges. We'll come to that in the next hour when we talk about expenses and how you can stack up billable expenses for your customer. And you can mark as printed later if you're that old school and still print stuff out and mail things with stamps that cost way too much money now. Here's the interval. You can pick a start date. It has to be any date past today. It's not going to let you do anything before today's date. So this could start tomorrow if we wanted it to. Or we could repeat it. The end, I usually put never unless it's like this is a 3-year contract, and then I can put it by and the end contract date so I don't have to remember to go turn things off. But never is typical for me. It's going to recur monthly, every 1 month on the first day, or you could pick the 7th day or the last day. And your monthly intervals could be daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly. So doing this work once to have it bill for you for the next 3 years and you don't have to think about it, it's kind of a beautiful thing. So that exists. And then we can find those recurring transactions in the transaction list of the customer's account for them, and we can manage them there. We can disable it, like if they call in with a hardship, like, hey, COVID really hit us hard still in 2024, and can we get 3 months off and extend our contract 3 months? You could do that by pausing and whatever else. But I digress. Okay. Let's go look for our John Gnome again, that guy, our favorite client. What was the question?
Just save that invoice.
Save and close. Yes, sorry. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Did
it?
save it that time.
Son of a gun. Okay, Amanda, do it so fast. I will, she says. Just. Pardon me. Tricky. Oh, you're selling 5 of them. Oh, okay. Oh, we wanted.
Save and read, save and send, right? Let's look at that.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so your button should say like review and send or save and whatever, right? That pulls up this in this view now. So number over here, this is something that we can go fix in our accounts and settings if you want to permanently change it. Or if you just want to adjust the email here, what it says, you can click anywhere on there and change the wording in there. It's going to auto-populate his email address that you have on file. It's going to come from it's a QuickBooks notification, so it's not necessarily an inbox that you have to manage, which confuses a lot of people, but that's how that works. But you can send yourself a copy if you want to manage it in your inbox. Okay, and then this is what they're seeing. It used to be you could see like the body of the email and like the review and pay button, but that's unnecessary, really. So this is what the customer is going to see. Garden gnomes with the red garden gnomes with a big nose, amounts, it's taxed. Apparently we can click that button again. And then you can send the invoice from here, which it has a T for tax.
It's not text.
Because we didn't set up tax liability and we can't with the phony baloney company. Because it's fake. Okay. Oh, you know what we forgot to do is the memo. You guys had just done that. Down here you said it was the red, I don't remember what I said. Garden or red gnome order, something like that. You guys were there, you know what I said. Okay, we'll just save and close. If you push the drop down and not save, you can actually do save and close here. That should take us back to where we were. So now you can see in the memo, that's where that's showing up in the transaction center. On the invoice, remember I said it was hidden, so it's for internal use only. This is where you're seeing it. Okay? All right. Any questions about that? Kind of just flying through it. Selling some fake stuff. Okay, well, fake customer is going to pay us for the fake stuff. So let's talk about the next step. Let's receive a payment. There's a couple of ways to do that as well. You can see this blue hyperlink over here. If you're in the Customer Center already, you can receive payment from there. It will pull up a receive payment form just like Plus New and receive payment will over on the left side menu. Yeah. Or from the transaction drop down, it's also there. A couple different ways to get the form. Ultimately, we want to pull up what's called the payment or receive payment form. And I know it's a receive payment form because it has its name in the top left corner and the backwards clocky thingy. Okay? I will take advantage of that name. Okay, so in this instance, receive payments lab 2.4, we're saying that John paid us cash on today's date, but yes, cash. So there's no reference number. If there were a check, we'd put a check number in there. And I will say, oh, I love preaching. It's my favorite. I'm going to preach for a second. From a bookkeeper standpoint, you receive a check today, but it's dated April 1st. What date do you put in the payment date? Today's date or April 1st? April 1st. And I'll tell you why. Because for internal purposes, if your customer says, hey, I've already paid that and I have a check dated this and whatever, what information do you need to have that matches? The customer's information, right? So even though it says that you're receiving the payment, you technically physically manhandled that check today. It was dated on their records 4/1, and we want to match their records for reconciliation purposes. Okay, I will step off my soapbox now. Always do that. And the same for bills. When you get a bill, don't put the day you open that letter from Questar, put the date on the bill. And dates matter because of cash versus accrual basis, yes? We just talked about that at the beginning of class. So, okay. And then this hangs a lot of people up, undeposited funds, or your QuickBooks might actually call it payments to deposit. It goes by both names. It's equally loathed by everybody. But what is the point of undeposited funds? Just as a guess.
You just haven't put them in the bank yet. You've received the payment, but you haven't deposited it into your bank.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The digital equivalent of saying, I'm going to the bank on Friday. I don't have time to run every day to the bank, right? Okay. If you were, someone asked in the last class, great question, what if he was paying us $100 and I'm headed directly to the bank right now? In that drop down, could I say that it went into the checking account? You could. If, here's my caveat, if that was all you're depositing. Because ultimately what you've created is a record that'll now show up on your bank feed and on your bank statement. So to reconcile, if I was just taking $100 to the teller and the teller was going to give you a paper that said I deposited $100 in my bank, it's fine to put the deposit to as the checking account. But if, for fun, and I'll show you what that looks like because that's the next step, you're going to deposit it with other things and you're going to batch things together, we want undeposited funds, okay? So rule of thumb, even if I do go directly to the bank with one check, I always use undeposited funds because the next step makes sense that way for me and it never gets lost. So, okay, any questions? 7 to close. Now that we have the money, someone else showed up. Who do we pick on last time? Jeff's Jalopies. Jeff is also going to pay us his.
Supposed to receive $100 then?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yes, please. Give you just a few seconds to catch up. Man, my throat is so dry.
How would you make, once you create your invoice, can you make it a PDF?
It automatically makes it a PDF. So I'm going to have to repeat your question in the mic because you want the recording later. You asked me, how do I make it a PDF? It will automatically do so. What you want to do is make sure that your customer gets the PDF. And when you did the save and review, we had the invoice on this side and we had the email on this side. There was a little box that checked that said attach PDF version.
Okay.
And that's how they're going to get the downloadable PDF.
And are we able to save the PDFs? Because we save all of our invoices on our computer. So can we transfer that into that file off of QuickBooks?
You could download it yourself. If you were to like email yourself a copy, like CC yourself and put it in some place that you can just go download them all fast, that's what I'd recommend doing.
You can also
But
share to
print and download if you wanted, you could do that as well, yeah. But that's,
PDF copy.
yeah. This I feel like takes a little bit longer than like kind of stacking it all in one. Maybe you have like an office person that can do it for you and you just send it to like a dump email and they go through, they download those and put them in whatever network file you have. Whatever works. That's a good question. Much appreciated. We all caught up? We received a payment? It's Friday, let's go to the bank. That's just the day that I usually go to the bank. Oh wait, Jeff's Jalopies, I lied. You won't have this, but I'm gonna show you what it looks like here for that reason, okay? So Jeff Jalopies is gonna pay us as well. Let's say what just happened? Did you just do it?
That was weird.
It did it. It guessed that we got it all right.
It didn't let me put in,
Oh, okay.
like it didn't make me put in the payment.
Okay, let's say that this check from Jeff Jalopies came from 5-1, just for the sake of whatever. And again, because I'm bossy about that, and I will always be. We put it in undeposited funds as well, and the save and close. So now we have the $100 that John Nome gave us, and then we have the Jeff Jalopies money to go together. So we have $181 to go deposit, okay? So the only place we can find the deposit form is in the plus new, up at the top left. So under the other category, the first option is a bank deposit. Which brings up, again, the bank deposit, we know it's there because it's in the top left. Its name is on the top left. But it's going to show us everything that's sitting in our drawer to be deposited, okay? Here's our $100 cash, and there's the check that we received from Jeff's Jalopies. So I would have wanted to do the undeposited funds or the payments to deposit so that I could batch deposit. Because the teller, unless I'm like the really mean person that says, deposit this $100. Oh, it's all done? Now deposit this $81. Tellers hate you. Don't do that. Make friends, not enemies. Okay? So let's do it the easy way. Here we can come actually and print from the bottom and make a deposit slip all ready to go. We can stamp it with our fancy stamp or write our account number on there, and it makes the window experience so much better. Okay? Let me also talk about adding funds to this deposit. I use the scenario, like what if John Nome, our favorite client, stiffed us $1. He only paid us $99 on the check. What could we do? Oh, wait, we talked about that. You could adjust the invoice. That was in the receive payment form. I should have done that back then. But in the last class, we had changed the amount to $99, but then he felt like uber guilty and wanted to come add the $1. He gave us $1 cash to go pay for it. There are other things, like let's say, or he gave us a tip. Well, in this scenario, we'll say he gave us a tip. You would pick, you can't do products and services in the deposit form, but you can do direct income and direct expense. But deposit's usually going to be a direct income, right? So we'll pick from our income accounts and we'll say this was landscaping services. We'll call it landscaping services and tip money or whatever, okay? None of us get tipped on this profession, unfortunately, but we can hope, we can hold out hope, okay? And it was just cash, and he gave us $5, okay? So we can add deposits this way. What instances can you think of that you'd be depositing money that you wouldn't have an anchored invoice or sales form to go with it? What about refunds or vendor credits or things like that, like vendors giving you money back, right? Mm-hmm. You overpay and they're like, here's your $100 back.
This, but they're like, well, the job actually was this, so we're going to give you the extra $100.
Right? So I get asked all the time, how do I account for that? So here you can do it. You can actually do it without even selecting these other payments of deposit. We could just do add funds to this deposit straight and just say, I got $5 in cash. Found it in the parking lot. I'm going to count it as income and pay taxes on it because I'm crazy and honest. No. But you could do that. And you're going to, again, just link it directly to an income account. Okay. And we're going to put the account up here. I think this is actually lab 2.5 that I kind of like skipped over. But we're going to put it in our checking account, and we're saying that we're going to the bank today. So save and close. And if I go up to just plus new and bank deposit again, it's removed those. So manually, it has moved it from the payments deposit or undeposited funds. It's not here anymore. It's actually in the checking account where it belongs. Sometimes when you run a profit and loss, you'll see an account that says unapplied cash payments or payments to deposit sitting on your profit and loss in the income categories, right? That's evidence of you not following the workflow properly from the receive payment to deposit side. So if you have errors like that, that's how we're going to fix them, is creating the forms that relate to it. So now we're going to come back to John. It's John. We can see in the transaction list, here's the invoice, and here's the payment. And it's marked as paid and closed because it's actually deposited. Okay? Any questions about that? Just to recap, what we did is we decided what we're selling. We created a product and service. We found someone who wanted to buy it, and we created a customer. Right? We decided to sell them the thing. We created a sales form. In this case, we created an invoice. We received payment, and we deposited that payment. That is the organic workflow for customers and money in. No fun. All right, so we went over the products and services, managing the customer center. Let's review the sales center. That's what we forgot to do. Okay, so I think it's the all sales. So all sales is going to show you a viewing of all of your income forms that we've created. If we were to go specifically to the invoices tab up top, it will filter this to just show our invoices and estimates and so on and so forth. But go back to all sales. The thing that I've really liked, that kind of like clung to in the beginning when I started using QuickBooks Online, was this visualization here, which helps a lot with cash flow, right? So it's talking about, and we did skip this part, but estimates would essentially be a step precursor to invoicing, right? If we were doing a big job like Craig's Landscaping wanted to go do a huge install for a garden fountain, typically what he's going to do is give a bid and then translate that bid or convert that bid into an invoice. If that's something you guys want to talk about, we can go back and visit that. But back to this topic on hand. We're going to see the whole process here from estimates to unbilled income, more on that in just a second, to overdue invoices, money that I know I need to collect right now. Got like $1,400 worth of deadbeats monies to collect. I have $5,200 of invoices, 19 of them. What is the gray compared to the green to you? What does that mean? This would be open invoices, but different from overdue invoices in that they're created, I'm waiting to pay, but they're not late yet, based on terms, right? That's why those terms matter, putting them in. If most of your customers are due on receipt, then the next day, if they're still not paid, they're overdue. And they're gonna end up in this orange category, right? Or if you put out net 30 days, that's going to calculate all that invoice, all of the money that should be coming to you. And if I click on the gray bar, it's going to narrow down my forms comprising that number. So I can kind of figure out cash flow wise where my money is going to come from and who I would need to shake down first, right? And then we have the green bar, which shows us our recently paid, okay? If we go to invoices in particular, that tab, the bar up at the top, the bar changes just a little bit. So now we have our invoices in 4 different categories, or 2 large categories: overdue and paid. We have overdue and pending, and paid but not deposited. So all that money sitting in the drawer waiting for Friday, and then paid and deposited. So we can kind of break out where our cash flow is based on those figures and those images. Okay, you can look at estimates in its own tab, which is really helpful, especially if you've got a sales team and you want to know kind of like what's my win rate, right? And who do I need to go, especially if money is getting tight, which jobs do I need to focus on? Where do I need to send my salespeople? You can edit the status of an estimate in the new managed drawer up here. So if you have accepted, converted, pending, declined, it'll also help you have visuals on your win rate or whatever you call it. I think it's lots of different things. Okay, and the audit history is helpful, so you can kind of see if you've made changes to your estimate. I'm a proponent of usually making multiple estimates and then using that reference number in your estimate to make your invoice. But okay, any questions? Excuse me. Here's another place we can find our products and services. I talked about that. So this is the sales center. This is how we're going to navigate what information we're getting from the sales center. The expense side of things is going to look all very familiar to you. So this is going to kind of feel somewhat redundant. But that process is a lot simpler than the money in. It's a lot harder to make money than it is to spend money. So, and we're more concerned with the other. So let's talk about the workflow for expenses. Let's start by going to the expense center, Amanda, on the left navigation menu. Again, you can see that this is set up Oh, they don't have the overview. But let's go to vendors. We'll start there. This is set up just like the customer center, right? So we're starting with the view number 1, which gives us essentially a Rolodex. Here's our vendors' names. They do offer the 1099 tracking. We'll come to that in just a second. Phone number, email, and open balance is how much I owe them, and actionable items. If I click anywhere in here, it's going to bring out, or like beside the phone number, there you go. And the little hamburger sign up here, if it doesn't pop out immediately, is going to show you this list on the left side menu. You can hit that again, little hamburger menu. I learned from IT, that's its official name, by the way. I didn't name that one, somebody else did. But that can collapse and expand. So you can see a list of all your vendors here. It looks like here I owe the insurance company $241. I don't know how to say that. Brosnahan. But I don't owe Chin's Gas and Oil anything. Those are what we're seeing, okay? And it's the same thing over here. We've got transaction list, and then we could look at their calling card, more or less by the vendor details. Okay, so let's add a vendor, which is lab number. How do we do that? Do you want to do this one?
Either way.
2.6. 2.6 is on page 30. Okay, so a couple different, just as a review, there's a few different ways to add a vendor, similar to a customer. Where would I find those things? Where would I find those places? We're in the vendor center, so we can we're not in the vendor center. We have to go to the view 1 for vendor center to get that. So I can add it from here. Also, I'm taking credit for this. In the plus new button, we can now add that. That's a new update. Really like it. Okay. Also, for funsies, you can add products and services from the new menu too, instead of having to go do it from the sales center. Okay, new vendor. In our lab, it says that we're purchasing from Gnomeware But Home. They specialize in gnomes. Okay, the email address, or this isn't in the file, but for the sake of showing you kind of how things all play out, we're going to say Gnomeware But Home, we have a salesperson that we work directly with. Her name is Sarah Smith. Okay, so ideally when I'm calling Gnomeware But Home and I'm putting all this information on there, I know I have to talk to Sarah, but in the vendor display name, when I'm writing out checks, I'm not writing checks to Sarah Smith, right? I'm writing checks to Gnomeware But Home. So make sure that that's adjusted. The phone number for Gnomeware But Home is not provided, so we'll skip that. Email is important. I did say that you could add any customer or any vendor with just a name. But for QuickBooks Online purposes, you should make it your bare minimum to have a name and an email address, because everything that you're doing in QuickBooks Online is usually via email. Okay? All right. Address. They are located at 456 Apple Drive in Logan, Utah, 84321. Hey, it's self-populated. You may have noticed, if you've been on QuickBooks Online, that there is a vendor network. So QuickBooks, trying to be helpful, has created a network where if you've put your information in already and you want to get paid faster, you can have your information auto-populate for people and they can connect that way. So sometimes when you're entering in invoices, it will create a trigger for them to put in the bill without having to actually send anything through. I've not seen it work well yet. So.
Isn't it supposed to populate in the other person's
books
already too?
That's the intent, is to create expenses. Your income forms turn into their expense forms without data entry on either part. It hasn't worked well, but that may improve. Okay, so in the notes section, we'll show you where that shows up. We decided last time that we know that Sarah's favorite food is chocolate-covered strawberries, and if I want a really good deal, I send a box of chocolate-covered strawberries first. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about attachments. What kind of attachments would you need to put into a vendor's account? What if that vendor was a 1099 contractor? What do you need to collect? We're going to talk about 1099s in a second. A lot of us should be collecting COIs or certificates of insurance or proofs of insurance because that means we're paying less insurance, right? We don't want them included in our workers' comp plan. So we're going to collect their COI, but we're also going to collect their W-9 for tracking that for tax purposes. More on that in a second. A W-9 is very easy to find online. You can send a blank one. Basically what it's asking for is their name, address, their tax identification number, whether that's a social security number or a FEIN, or federal identification, EIN. And then it's going to have them sign and date. That's all it is. It's very simple information. But we do want to have W-9s on file for all of our contractors who would be qualifying for 1099s. Do you know how you qualify for a 1099 at the end of the year? You guys receive them, but do you know how your vendors qualify? What the qualifications are? If you are paid or pay someone, well, since we're in vendors, if you pay a vendor more than $600 in a calendar year, January to December, they qualify. If those payments were made on credit card, that number doesn't apply. Though credit card payments do not apply towards the 600 figure. So typically you can get away with filing the 1099s if you're paying via credit card. But if you're cash and check, you want to track that. QuickBooks will do all the math for us. So our goal is just to make sure we're tracking all of the potential 1099s always, and then we'll figure it out in January when we kind of look at the transaction types and make sure that we're using the right forms for stuff to calculate what the liability is there. Okay? Any questions on 1099s? At the end of every year, you are liable under penalties if you're late by January 31st to send out 1099 forms, which are to W-9 people or contractors what a W-2 is for a W-4 type employee, right? It's the government babysitting other folks through you and not paying you for it. Super rude.
Do you still send out the 1099 if their tax classification is like a S corp? Do you still send it and then?
Yes, because that also qualifies. So regardless, I think, of the 600 amount, rent is also always going to be a 1099, I think, and law professionals will also always get a 1099. Lawyer fees. If you have questions on the compliance there, a CPA or a bookkeeper can help you out in that area. But the rule of thumb is, like, let's always track just in case. So here in the vendor center, back on track, Marilyn, we have the ability to collect from a W-9 their EIN, which is listed here without all of the 9 digits it needs. So it should be 89-6374911. We're going to check this box for track 1099 payments, which will help us in January at the end of the year compile those things. Okay, here's where we're going to put our payment terms. We happen to know, because we've sweet-talked Sarah enough, that we've actually earned a net 30 or net 60, we'll call it net 60. She really liked the strawberries. So now we have a long time that we have to pay her. Super nice. Okay, an account number, if you were like referenced in their internal system some way, this is where you're going to save that. And we're going to save and close. Okay, now we're going to create a bill. Yay. Hooray. We can do that. Let's go look at our vendor first, actually, Amanda. Let's go find No More But Home. Sweet. No, it doesn't like it tonight.
It doesn't like that. It doesn't like anything that I'm doing.
Okay, No More About Home. You can look, it's again similar. We have our transaction list, but there's no transactions yet to view. So we'll go create a new transaction. We could also do it from the plus new button up at the top left. And we're looking in particular for a bill form. Pause for a sermon. I think I talked about this last week. In the English language, if I use the word invoice or bill, those are interchangeable. Essentially, as far as we're concerned, those are the exact same thing. But in QuickBooks Online, they have specific definitions. A bill is specifically us paying money out, right? Money that we owe. Where an invoice is money requested in. Okay? If I use an invoice form to pay No More But Home, it's not going to work, because what I'm doing is I'm asking for money from No More But Home, and that's not how it works. Yeah? So words matter in QuickBooks Online. We have to use bill forms for all money out type requests, and invoice forms for all money in type requests. Okay? Sermon over. But that matters, and it mixes a lot of people up. Okay, what are we buying? We're buying gnomes. Yes. So you can see from we've populated all the information here, right? This is going to go to Sarah Smith. Or it's coming from Sarah Smith because she's our sales rep. she gave us 60 days to pay because she loves our strawberries. She gave us a bill, we'll say, on 2/24 of 23. Man, this bill is old. She forgot to bill us. But let's say it's this year because we forgot to update it on the book.
Because we started that a year ago.
Now, we've been teaching this class for a hot minute, which means I've repeated myself a lot. Okay, the bill number is 5168. Okay, another sermon. So I've talked about on the receiving checks. It's really important to put the check date, right? Not the day that you're actually opening it. And this is similar here because we want to be able to reconcile with No More But Home later on. They're like, hey, you didn't pay that invoice, right? And they're going to have a specific date and a specific number. So we're going to use their date and their number, even though she forgot to send this 2 months ago, right? We're not going to put today's date. Okay, redundant. I am redundant. It's okay. Category. Here is where we actually differ just a little bit. You could look in here for your blue gnome or red gnomes. You guys are red gnomes, right? Yeah. And you're not going to find it because it's not a category. It's an item. You could, if you wanted to, put it directly into job materials or your gnome expenses if you wanted to, but we want to use products and services, especially important if you use like inventory type items because we want to be able to track the count down, right? Or the count up. In this case, because I'm buying them and I use that item, it's going to increase my numbers up. It's like, oh, you ordered 4 of these, so it's going to count your number up. When I invoice them and I sell them, it's going to count the number down. Okay, so you can push the little triangle button to expand or collapse, but we're going to use items. Now we can find our red gnomes. Okay? With the big nose. Okay, how many? It doesn't say, but we ordered 4, or need to order 4 because we're selling 4, and they're $10 a piece, which is auto-populated because of the way we did our product and service. We already put that in there. But maybe prices change. We can manually update the stuff. So, of import to note here is this box called billable. If we wanted to skip, there are a lot of contractors, right, who don't know exactly what the materials are going to cost because those prices are fluctuating all the time. You could go off of the billable price model where you'll pay me for labor, but you're also going to pay for materials with a markup, right? So I'm going to buy materials at $40, mark it at 50%, so on and so forth. By marking billable, what that does is connects to this customer. So if you mark billable and try to save and you have nothing in there, it won't let you save. But we can pick our customer and say, we're doing this for John Gnome. And we're going to put in a billable expense. We'll show you where that lands in just a second, okay? All right. Is that everything basically that we need for entering the bill? If I scroll down here, I would have been sent that bill, whether by paper and scanning it in, taking a picture of it, or via email. I would drop a picture of that bill here in the attachments for compliance purposes, proof of purchase. And we're going to save and close. Okay. For funsies, let's go look at the customer center again, because we haven't spent enough time there today. Let's go look at John Gnome. We'll see where that expense came to. Okay, here's his transaction center. We remember that invoice, remember that payment, but new is this billable expense charge, okay, and the $40. I could create an invoice based on whatever is stacked here, and let's do a create invoice really quick. It'll have a tray over here with all the billable expenses, and I can move them all over, but because there's only one, it's automatically added it. If we scroll down, you can see here, and it wasn't working earlier, and it didn't have the button there. Usually when you put the billable expense, it'll say eligible for markup, or you can edit it there, and you can mark up it by your percentage. It doesn't work on our side, but it should be there for yours. And if you need help with that, let us know. But we can manually change that price. Let's say it's $15. Or we could put in our price, which I think we actually did 100% markup, right? Because we're billing those for 20 bucks.
150%.
We did $25. Yeah.
Woohoo, we're making money.
Yep. Okay. And that's going to create an invoice the same way. So it depends on what makes sense for your work orders or your processes. If you're going to collect billable expenses and then bill them for that after the fact, do it that way as opposed to having to predict what that is and create the invoice. But all roads lead to Rome. It's all in the same process. Does that make sense? It's kind of a tangent, but okay. Okay. All right. Let's pay bills. We can do that from the vendor center when it's view 2, not view 1, with a new transaction. But I'm a big fan of the plus new button. It's always there.
Actually, you can't pay it.
No pay. Oh,
You can pay it on your credit card.
oh, well, never mind.
So it's only
Plus new button. I thought I was. That's weird. Pay bills creates a bill payment form, but this is kind of a like in between. This is the bill pay tray. In our firm, we're really passionate about budgeting, and I am a big proponent of making sure you pay bills twice a month, because otherwise you are overwhelmed and inundated. And so I've kind of picked those days as the 5th and the 20th, or the first week and the 3rd week. So I come in on that designated day and I look at it and see, okay, what needs to be paid before the next time I'm paying bills, right? So today I'd be concerned with all of these bills that are overdue, including No More But Home, because they sent that bill super late. Even though we had 60 days, it's overdue by 21 days. So, and you can pay multiple bills this way, or we'll just choose at this point, because we're doing lab number 2.8, just the No More But Home. Okay, we're going to choose a payment account. That's going to come from either your checking account or credit card. And this matters with the 1099s, because what did I just say about 1099 people paid with credit card? Those payments don't count. Absolutely. So, and you get points. If you use credit cards the right way and you play the game, you get to go on vacation once a year. Not with $40 bills though. That'd be like 5-digit bills. Okay, so we're gonna pay it from the checking account. We're gonna say this is where today's date matters, right? And we can print later. We'll show you that. Okay, that's going to put it in the plus new print checks tray. And it's going to auto-populate here. But let's say maybe we got one damaged gnome, and because we can be customers like that, we're only going to pay $30 with a $40 bill. Okay? What's going to happen at that point is it's going to tell me it's a partial payment, which means this bill is going to stay here as overdue, but it's only going to be overdue $10 now, right? That's how you can adjust those payments. You don't have to pay the full bill. You should, it's honest. So we'll go back and, just kidding, we'll pay for $40. And then we'll complain, because we do that. Save and close. Okay, and there are a couple different payment options at this point. I mentioned last week that there's plugins. Rolling out new is a program called QuickBooks Bill Pay. Very similar to what Bill.com used to do or Melio used to do. I don't love it. That's my opinion. Maybe you can love it, and that's okay. But if your bank that you're already paying fees and stuff for can do bill payments and bill pay systems on their platform, do it that way, right? Or the good old-fashioned way of printing checks is never going to hurt anybody's feelings. Checks cash most of the time. Let's show you how to print your checks. Under Plus New and under Vendors, we have this print checks. If I had paid multiple bills that way, I could print them off all in one batch. Yep, I'm finished with the setup. Remember, they're going to try to sell you QuickBooks checks because they want your money. Okay. So you can see our No More But Home check is ready to print. This date on the bill payment is really important because when I'm looking at accrual versus cash basis, again, when I'm running reports, even if they lose my check and never cash it, right, on accrual basis, I'm going to see that expense out on 5/15. Okay? All right. Starting with check number, that's all pretty self-explanatory. Are there any questions about that side of things, the vendor expense stuff?
Is there like how we had with the customers where we can make it a recurring thing?
Yes. Yes, there is. Let's talk a little bit more about recurring transactions, like in a broader spectrum. So I said lists like 100 times last time, but under your lists section is the recurring transactions. Let's go look at the recurring transaction center. If you're looking at the customer center or the vendor center, you can look at recurring transactions that are applicable to only that customer that you're in view of or only that vendor you're in view of. But this is your listing of all of them together. If we want to add a new, these are the types we have. We could put in recurring bills. We could put in recurring checks that we mail out. We could put in recurring deposits, which we talked about. I'm not sure why you would do that. You could do invoices, journal entries, expenses, etc. So any of those things you can set up that way. And it's going to have the same scheduling drawer. It's going to give you an interval of weekly, daily, monthly, yearly. So if you want to put in like your insurance, you pay insurance semi-annually, right? You could do that and make it happen that way. You just have to choose the correct form here, the transaction type. Okay. Let's talk about, does that answer your question adequately, or do you want to walk through it again? We can, it's up to you. Okay, good enough. Okay, let's look at the plus new button again and kind of talk about the terms. Actually, Amanda, I'm gonna sit down for a second and let you kind of go over the definitions of the terms on the two lists, because I feel like I've been talking the whole time. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Won't we mad?
I guess so.
Okay, I'll drive.
All right, so we're just going through the list here, just
Yes.
going over stuff. Okay. So plus new has all of our lists, right? So we have invoices. I wish they were in order. Like that would be nice if estimate. I understand why invoice is first. It's the one we use the most. But so invoice, receive payment. There's an estimate. Credit memos. Do you know when we would need to use a credit memo on a customer?
When we're giving them a refund.
We actually
Kind
have
of.
a refund receipt here.
We
But
have a
credit's
refund.
like, I'm not giving you your money back, but next time you want to buy something from me, you've got a credit,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Sales receipt is like they have, like Square. Like they've come in, you've swiped their card or whatever, they pay right on the spot. You can create a sales receipt. Sales receipts are also great in recurring transactions. If you have QuickBooks payments and have people on an auto payment system, you can run a sales receipt that automatically every month it's just taking the money out of their account. It's just running their card, which is awesome. We have clients on that and it's phenomenal. We have the refund receipt we talked a little bit about. We haven't ever really used the delayed credit or the delayed charge. I don't really know a whole lot about that. And don't forget, you can add a customer, a vendor, a contractor, and products and services from there, which is new and which is awesome. Expenses. So the
Default.
what?
The default one is expense.
Oh, the default one is expense. Yes. So, and we'll talk about this next week when we're going through the banking and that everything that comes through your bank is considered an expense. So the only time that you're going to see checks is if you're writing a check. The only time you're going to see bills is if you're putting in bills. They will match to the bank, but anything that's coming through the bank is just going to be an expense, which is basically like your credit card. You're just swiping your card. You're not going to create a bill for going to McDonald's or something like that. It's just an expense. So that's great there. Checks is where we can write just a check. If you just need to write a check to someone, you can fill it out there. Then you have the bill and the pay bills. Purchase orders. Do you guys work with purchase orders a lot? You create purchase orders to send to someone? No? Some yes and no? Some of you do. So,
Like posting versus non-posting transactions.
in what sense?
Okay, I'll do it.
I'm like,
So an estimate, what's really important is when we're creating estimates.
is that? Just make sure it's on.
It is on, I think.
Okay.
I hope so. If not,
If the blue light's on.
pretend. Do we win every estimate? If we're Superman, that's super great, right? Do we want to be paying taxes on potential income or real income? Real income, right? So in that sense, estimates, we can create hundreds of those and hundreds of scenarios, and we won't be taxed on them because estimates are considered non-posting transactions. But we can convert them into posting transactions when we turn them into invoices. It's the same on the vendor side. Purchase orders are attempts to spend money, right? Like I want to order from a manufacturer. I want to order 100 gnomes. Well, good luck, Charlie. There's only 50 in stock, right? So I may have put in a scenario where I was going to order that many, and I can keep track of that, but I'm only going to be paying or getting to expense the 50 that I received, not the 100. So purchase orders, like estimates, are non-posting, whereas bills or expenses and invoices are posting. Posting meaning they're hitting your financials, and it is taxable income or tax expense. Does that make sense? Okay, we'll talk more about posting and non-posting again, so that term will matter next week. But
Okay. Thank you. We're not going to talk anything about payroll. That's all the team side. But if you have questions about payroll, you're welcome to ask us. And we talked about bank deposit. You can create transfers. You can create journal entries. Sometimes we need to create those to just kind of move money within our account. Statements are really great if you have people that are stacking up their invoices and you need to send out a statement, or sometimes just monthly you send out statements to everybody. You can find it there, or you can find it in the sales as well, inside their thing. Create them for each one. If you have inventory, you can make an inventory adjustment, and you need to do that at the end of the year. You can create that there. It'll create a journal entry that does that. You can pay down your credit card. There's so many options that you can do.
Do your plus new buttons look like this? Is there anything on your list that isn't on ours, or vice versa?
It all looks the same.
Good deal.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I just learned that. I'm not sure when the cutoff. I don't know when the cutoff date is, but the last week I made you guys switch to accountant view. They're actually consolidating the accountant and business view, so it's now all going to be accountant view.
Yes.
So they're as bossy as I am, and I decided it was not worth it to have the two different views.
Yeah.
Makes it easier to navigate.
It was exciting to hear that because it is kind of a pain in the butt. But all right, what else did we need to cover? Or is that everything? Let's look at some of our. Yeah. I think that's it. And then just
We
the
find
forms.
ourselves a little extra time, so if you have questions and you want to work through stuff, you're welcome to stick around. We can do some workshop. We're really going, I'll leave this on the video. Next week, we've made specific time for that. We want to go through the banking workflow. That's what you're going to cover. This, I always tell people that this class, like, it feels like a lot, this particular session of the class, because this is the longhand way to do everything. This is when in elementary school they taught you how to do long division by hand and you hated every minute of it. And then they showed you, oh, you can do it on a calculator, super easy. Well, next week is the calculator week. I can show you how to do it really fast, okay? But you have to understand this process because it'll help you to troubleshoot stuff that's going to maybe accidentally happen. But next week we're gonna talk about the banking workflow and reconciling. But we've also carved out specific time for you to bring questions in, to work with Amanda and I individually if you needed to, like sit aside and focus on your hands-on real questions, okay? Today we ended a little bit early too, probably because we had to, we started late with the last class and shoved it all in and we just kind of repeated the same pattern. So we have a little extra time if you'd like to stick around and ask questions. We're happy to do that, or we can let you off a little bit early tonight. It's totally up to you. So, okay.
Any other questions?
I just have a question on I asked you earlier about timesheets.
The timesheets.
The
Yeah,
non-posting
she-
transaction of pensions.
Well, so she's having an issue with timesheets not converting properly. Maybe you can help her.
I'm wondering what I'm doing wrong. So like, if I have somebody that has overtime, they have 40 hours, they have 46 hours. So then I go to preview payroll, and it's all shown in regular time, but I need 6 to go over. So if I just get 40 on there and then go over and put the 6 in OT, it says my timesheet's out of sync. So.
Might be something in the settings.
And the payroll things. Do you do QuickBooks Online payroll too?
Because
Yeah,
I'm wondering with the overtime, is it on 80 hours?
It's on
Or is it on 40?
and weekly. So
Oh.
is that why it's messing up probably? I have some.
I'm not sure.
Some of them get paid bi-weekly and then I have 2 that get paid weekly, so.
And you have them scheduled, like you have your schedules all set up, right? Let's take a look. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Anyone else? Do you have questions? Okay. If you need something, grab us. I'm going to take this off.
One voice isn't as effective as a choir of voices standing together, protecting our licensing and trade. Add yours to the UPHCA today at uphca.net/y-join-UPHCA.